Hi, welcome to Board Gems. I apologize for the thumbnail for this video. It's hideous. And there's a reason I did it that way, and that's because this game that I'm covering in this video is considered by many to be one of the ugliest board games ever made. What game are we talking about? Magna Grecia. I hope I pronounced that okay. It's Italian. It means Greater Greece, basically. It's supposed to be representing Greece, the Greeks kind of expanding into the Italian peninsula. It was designed by Colovini and Schacht. These are two great OG game designers. And as far as I know, this is the only time they've worked together on a game. So already this is special and something I wanted to look at. This game came out 2003, so it's a little over 20 years old, and it only had the one edition. Published by, well, the box says Venice Connection, which is Leo Colovini's company. The English is from Rio Grande Games. And in general, I consider this a Clementoni game. Clementoni is an Italian toy/game maker. It's for 2 to 4 players. I have never played this with 2. I'm sorry, I can't offer any opinions on that. I personally wouldn't bother, but that's me. There's lots of great 2-player games. I wouldn't take this off the shelf if I was looking for a game to play 2-player. The box says it takes about 75 minutes, and I think it says ages 12 and up. I mean, rules complexity-wise, 10 and up is fine, but it's going to be hard to convince a kid to play this because the game is really dry, not just in how it plays, but in the presentation. And when I do the how to play, you're going to see what I'm talking about, because this game is famous for being hard on the eyes. I know there are viewers who look at my channel as a sort of a buying guide. It's like, oh, I need to find... Daryl says this is a good game. I need to go out and buy a used copy of this. Please watch the whole video before you do. Or skip to the end, I guess, where I have a conclusion. This is going to be a hard sell for a lot of game groups who are used to more modern games and modern presentations, because as presentations go, this is almost as old school as it gets. They just needed an old, frowny-looking guy on the cover, honestly. And yeah, have a look at the presentation before committing to getting the game or something, but have a look at it. It is a very interesting game. Let me show you how it plays. Then afterwards, I'll talk about whether I think it's still a gem or not. To set up the game, place the board between the players. Take the round tiles. There's 12 of them. You can play 12 rounds or 8 rounds. They come in the 4 player colors. You'll see orange, red, yellow, and brown. So you're going to separate them by player color. Each pile you're going to mix up. Then you're going to stack them so each color appears once in every 4. If you're playing 8 rounds, that's enough, or if you play 12 rounds, use all of them. Now what you'll do is you will flip over one for the first round, and you'll flip over another for the round to come. Or you can just have the pile face up, of course. Just know that there's a risk you can kind of see what's coming up. Take the oracles. You're going to remove 2 in a 2 or 3 player game. This is enough for a 2 or 3 player game. There's no easy way to distribute these, but you're going to put them randomly on some of these village spaces. Some of the village spaces have a green outline. These are more on the edge of the board. Try to spread out these oracle pieces on any of the other village sites. There's no easy way to do this. Here's one way. The facing doesn't matter yet, but it will during the game. Each player gets a player color, and in that player color they get a player aid, and they have spaces on the player aid for the stuff they get. These barrel pieces are markets. Each player starts with all their markets. These are city tiles. They're the same on both sides. And these are road tiles, and they're double-sided, straight, and a slight incline. The roads are in the player colors, and each player will start with 4 of each type on their player aid. Each player also has a pawn, which will start on this track based on number of players, 2-player, 3-player, or 4-player. I'm setting it up for a 3-player game. And that's it, you're ready to begin. In Magna Grecia, the goal of the game is to get money, victory points. They're the same thing in this game. You spend it, so I call them money. And at the end of the game, the player with the most money wins. Over the course of the game, players will be building cities, starting on these village spaces. And the cities can have markets. Markets usually have a cost to build, but at any point during the game, or at the end, if you don't do it earlier, all these markets are sold, so hopefully for profit. And in addition, the most influential cities, that is to say the cities that have the most connections to other things, other cities, other villages, or these oracles, the cities with the most connections are the most influential. For every oracle that's on the board, they are going to be pointing toward the most influential city that's directly connected to them. And the owner of that city will score 4 at the end of the game for every oracle pointing to one of their cities. The game ends after 8 or 12 rounds, which you decide at the start of the game. One round is each player taking a turn. And in this game, turn order is predefined by these round tiles. There's a bit of information on each round tile. It shows the player order, so in this case red, and then brown, and then orange, and then yellow. And these are how strong each of the actions are that each player can do. On a player's turn, they can do either 2 different actions or 1 enhanced action. And the different actions are build roads, build cities, or replenish the tiles in your personal supply. You can do 2 of these things, and how well you can do them is pre-printed on the round board. So this round, if you build roads, you can put down 2 road tiles. If you build cities, you can put down 3 city tiles. If you replenish, you can take 5 tiles from your backup supply onto your player board, which is your current supply. And that 5 can be any combination of roads or cities. Instead of doing 2 different actions, you can do 1 enhanced action. You pick one of these actions, and then you do it 1 step higher. So you'll see instead, if you did an enhanced road action, instead of putting down 2 road tiles, you would put down 3. If you did an enhanced city action, instead of putting down 3 tiles, you'd put down 4. And in the case of replenishing, instead of replenishing 5 tiles into your supply, you'd replenish 7. Note that this far end number is never pre-printed on the board. That's only for if you do an enhanced action, and then it always does the next step up. So these are the rules that are in place, the limitations for the current round, but you can see what the next round is. The next round, same, 2 road tiles and or 3 city tiles and or replenish, but the replenish is weaker next round. So you may want to consider replenishing this round while the action is stronger. So let's talk about the 3 different actions. If you do place roads, build cities as your 2 actions, you can do them in any order, and you can go back and forth. You can put down a road tile, you can put down a city tile, you can put down another road tile, and so on, any combination. But if one of the actions is replenish, that's always at the end of your turn. So if you did build city tiles and replenish, you would put up to 3 city tiles onto the board, and then replenish 5 tiles into your personal current supply. But replenish is always at the end if you do it. So red will do 2 actions or 1 enhanced action, and then brown will do 2 actions or 1 enhanced action, and then orange, and then yellow if yellow is playing. Then this round tile goes away. This tile will become the active one, and you'll see the player order is different. Orange, and then red, and then yellow, and then brown. Generally, you're building cities. You're trying to build big influential cities, hoping that the oracles will point to them. Each oracle belongs to a city, and it points to whichever city is the most important, the most influential. And oracles are worth points/money at the end of the game. The other way is to build and then sell markets, and markets go on city tiles. I'm going to talk about putting down city tiles and putting down road tiles kind of together because they're quite related. If you put down a city tile, you can do so in any of the villages on the outer edge of the board that have these green outlines. You can also found a city inside these villages, which are more central in the board, but in order to do that, you have to have a road leading into it of your own color. That's actually the only reason color matters in terms of the roads. The players can build roads out of any cities. So if red were to place a city here, and then later on it's brown's turn, and brown decides to place roads and cities, brown could build a road to this village and build a city there. But right now, only brown can build a city in this spot. Red or orange, if they want to, they have to build their own road into that spot. When you place a city tile on the board, you must pay 1 money. And you can put more city tiles down. Each of these would cost 1 money. You can only start 1 new city per turn. So if red decided to do roads and then cities, red could not put a city here, build a road here, and then start another city. This would not be allowed in a single turn because you can only start 1 new city per turn. But you can make cities larger. And this can be useful for 2 reasons. A larger city is more expensive for other players to put markets in, and a larger city has more outward-facing hexes that they can build roads from. And a city is considered powerful or influential if it has a lot of roads going to a lot of different destinations. So the larger a city is, the more potential connections it can later have. Whenever a player founds a new city, they put one of their own markets in the city for free. Placing a market in another player's city is allowed. It costs 1 money per tile that the city is in terms of size, plus 1 for every market already in there. So for brown to put a market in here would cost 2. 1 for the city tile, 1 for the red market already in there. But if the city was larger, like so, and maybe orange is also in this city, for brown to put a market in here would cost 5. 1, 2, 3 for the tiles, 4, 5 for the pre-existing markets. Each player can only have at most 1 market in every city. Markets are the only way of getting money during the game. The only other way of getting money / points is from the oracles, and those happen at the end of the game. So the key is placing markets for cheap and then selling them when they are valuable. The cost to build a market is different from how much the market is worth. And how much a market is worth depends on how many connections that city has. Right now, this city has no connections. It is worth nothing. Right now, this city is worth 2 because it has 2 connections to other locations around the board, 2 direct connections, 1 to this village and 1 to this oracle. Immediately, this oracle points to this city. This is the most influential, most powerful city that is directly connected to this oracle. And at the end of the game, if this is still the case, red is going to score 4 at the end of the game for this oracle. But maybe another city later will become more powerful, more influential than this one, and then the oracle may rotate. Another city has to become more powerful than the existing city in order for the oracle to change its orientation to face that new city. Tying is not enough. Building multiple connections to the same location doesn't do any good, doesn't add any value to the city. This is still value 2 because there are 2 locations that this city is directly connected to. And it doesn't matter what color the roads are. All this means, the fact that these are 2 different roads, is that both red and brown may build a city in this location. Let's say it looks like this at the end of the turn, and then later on it's red's turn again, and they decide to build city tiles, but no road tiles. You are normally only allowed to put city tiles on villages to found a new city or to extend an existing city, but you can't extend a city next to another village, or next to, in this case, an oracle, unless it would merge cities together. So if there was a city like this, red and only red could put a city tile there to merge. There are some reasons why I may want to do that. I don't want to get too much into the strategy of the game right now. I just want to explain how the game works. The only time you're allowed to place a city next to a village is if you're immediately going to build into that village. So red could, if they did road plus city, they could do this, of course. But they could also just build city tiles. One here, as long as on the same turn, they build that city. And again, founding a new city allows them to put a free market in there. Other players have to pay to get a market in there. Part of the game is judging early which cities are going to be valuable, which cities are going to be worth more. It would cost orange or brown 3 to place a market in this city. But if they think that this city will be connected to more than 3 things, it's already connected to 1, let's see, it could be 2, 3, 4 maybe, then it's worthwhile. At the end of your turn, after you put down city tiles and or road tiles and or replenish, you may either build a new market onto the board, of course in somebody else's city, because your own cities automatically get markets, paying the cost, or selling the market and getting money. If red were to sell this market right now, you would flip it on the side and you'd immediately score it. In this case, red would get 1. But you can imagine if later on, after people build roads, build more cities, make more connections to things, selling a market may be worthwhile, especially if you're low on money. If red were to sell this market, red would get 4 money. 1, 2, 3, 4. The city's connected to 4 different things. When you sell a market, you turn it onto its side to remind you that you can never build another market in that city. Each city can only have 1 market per player per game. So once you sell a market in a city, you can never build another market in that city. And that's the main part of the game, making your cities larger and more powerful by connecting to more things, including oracles, but also getting markets into cities that you think will become bigger, more powerful later. There is an important rule, probably the easiest rule to forget in the game. Markets aren't worth anything if the city they're in isn't that player's city or isn't directly connected to that player's city. Let's say brown pays 3, 1, 2, 3 to build a market in this city. Right now this market is worth 0. Why is this worth 0? The city itself is worth 3 because there are 3 connections. Because brown's market is not directly connected to a city of browns. The way I describe it is, think of each city of a player produces a different good. Red produces goods, orange produces different goods, brown produces different goods. And these are perishable goods. And building a market in another player's city is to sell that player's own good, but how do they get their supply? They have to be directly connected to one of their own cities, which is producing the good. So brown can do this. Right now, brown paid 3 because it's 1, 2, 3 is the cost to build a market. It's worth 0. But if later on, brown builds a city, like so, now this market is directly connected to the same player's city, and so now this market has goods to sell, and now this market is worth something. How much is it worth? Again, it's the number of connections that city has to other locations on the board. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's quite common during the game for you to run low on money, and you have to make a judgment call as to which cities you think won't grow much anymore, because those are ones that you can probably sell your markets in. They're not going to go up in value anymore, and that'll give you some more working money with which to continue the game. There are other little rules. I don't want to get into the minutia too much. For example, orange can build through this oracle, to build a city like so. If orange wants to, that's allowed. It is also possible to block other players. Brown decides to build a road here, and that's all they do. Then later on, orange decides they're going to do this. They obviously can't extend another player's road, but they could do something like this. and now this road is nothing. It's not going anywhere. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but that's the general flow of the game, is a player is going to do some combination of building roads, which are free, putting down city tiles, which do cost money, and then optionally placing down a market in another player's city or selling one of their markets on the board. So red would take their 2 actions or 1 enhanced action, then brown would do theirs, then orange would do theirs. If yellow's playing, yellow would go, and then it's a new round. We do like so. These are the new rules. Same, 2 roads, 3 cities. Now the replenish is weaker, it's only 3. And you can see the next round, the numbers are quite low. You can only put down 1 city tile on your turn, and replenish is only 2. So each player does 2 regular actions or 1 enhanced action, and then afterwards may do something with a market, either add a new one or remove one from the board, sell it, turning it over and getting money. And once all players have done that, the round is over, we get a new round tile, but we always see the next one coming up. And we do that 8 or 12 times, depending on what you decided at the beginning of the game. Over the course of the game, these oracles will point to whichever city is the most valuable, that is to say, what city has the most connections to other things. This city is worth 2, is the only city connected to this oracle, so obviously this oracle will point to this city. Right now, if orange does this oracle will point to this city, but later on, another player, honestly probably red, I don't think there's much motivation for the other players to do this, could do something like that. And now we check, is this city more valuable than this one? Yes, this city is only worth 2, it's connected to 2 things. This city is connected to 5 things. This is the more important, the more valuable city, and the oracle will point there. And at the end of the game, if that's still pointing there, red, the owner of that city, will score 4 points / money. Brown would score 4 for this one. Red would also score 4 for this one. And then the player who has the most money / points at the end of the game, based on this track, wins the game. In the case of a tie, you look and see how many tiles are left in a player's current usable supply. Now, whoever has the most left over had the most efficient game, I suppose, and they would win the tiebreaker. That's it. You're ready to play Magna Grecia. Okay, let's get the big thing out of the way. This game's presentation is terrible, is hideous. And you might say, Daryl, is it as bad in person as it looks like in the video? I find it's a little bit easier to read the game state in person as opposed to just like looking at photos and that, but it's still really bad. Having yellow as a player color and with yellow roads on yellow tiles are just so hard to read the game state with those yellow roads. So playing a 4-player game is, for me at least, really painful. I don't even know why the tiles are yellow. Like, it looks like they were trying to do the same color, because it's the same pattern as the board. And the board is more kind of a light brown. Maybe if the tiles were the board color, it might be a little bit better, but the fact that the tiles are yellow, So, okay, that's the obvious thing. What you care about is, besides all that, is the game any good? Yeah, it is. So it's one of these types of games, where the rules are simple. Now, that is to say there aren't many of them. They're important rules that are easy to forget in this spur of the moment, right? There have been cases where I've played games where, for example, somebody has a market and it's nowhere near any of their cities. A market has to be directly connected to the player's own city to be worth anything. So if somebody pays to put a market in a city, and then other players build cities all around it, such that that player is not able to connect to one of their own cities directly, then that market is useless to them. It's worth nothing. It's a rule that's easy to forget. But that creates a little bit of shared incentive, because maybe you have a market in my city, and nearby, I have a market in your city. If we can connect them, then both our markets are worth something, whereas right now they're worth nothing. Of course, then it's who is building that road? Am I going to spend my road tiles to make that connection, or are you? You know, something I've done in the past is like, okay, I'll make my city a little bit larger toward that player's city so that if they decide to build that road, it's fewer road tiles for them. So I'm doing my part, right? I'm even paying money to extend my city. I need to meet you to meet me halfway. I need you to build the rest of the road to connect them. Another rule that's easy to forget is that you can only found one city on your turn. You might be able to place up to 4 city tiles if you do an enhanced action, but you can only create from scratch one city. All the other tiles have to be just extending a city. Some of these rules are easy to forget, especially because they're not necessarily intuitive. And it's not helped by the presentation because the roads are owned by the players. They're tiles that have the roads printed on them in the player colors. But for the most part, who owns the roads don't matter. It only matters for one reason. Unless you have a road leading from one city to the village, you cannot build a city in that village. But that's the only reason to have player colors for the roads. Once you have a road connecting a city and a city, or a city and an oracle, the player colors don't matter at all. So I would almost be tempted, if there was like a new version of this, to just get away with the idea of player colors at all in terms of the roads. Instead, there's maybe like a general supply of road tiles that are all the same color, but players have their own little, I guess, road building token that they put on it to show that this road is theirs. And they leave it there as long as it's an incomplete road or it's a road leading to a village. But once that road has 2 cities or a city and an oracle on both sides, remove the marker because the player card doesn't matter anymore. And another one would be to probably limit the number of rounds. So it's 8 rounds if you want a shorter game, 12 rounds if you want a longer game. And I find that in a 3-player game, 8 rounds just fly by. Like, turns can be really, really fast in this game. In the last couple of rounds, you can kind of, min-max a little bit and things can slow down. When I played a 3-player game for the first time, I said, okay, let's play 8 rounds and then see how we feel. And then if we like it, we'll play 4 more. And those first 8 rounds flew by. Turns were so snappy. And then we were like, okay, let's play 4 more rounds because that went really, really fast. So we played 4 more rounds and those 4 rounds ended up dragging a bit. So if I was to make a new version of this, I would be tempted, of course it would need a lot more, play testing or whatever, but I would say as a default assumption, I would like to play this game 12 rounds in a 3-player game, 8 rounds a 4-player game. That does mean you're not going to use the whole board. If you do 12 rounds, 4 players, only then you're going to try to squeeze every last road and city in this board, but otherwise there'll be a fair bit of unused space. Well, maybe you can shrink the board a little bit then. These are things that I think about for a new version because it's really, really hard for me to suggest people just go out and buy this. Maybe, buy a used copy, get a trade for it, but it's just really hard to justify this game getting this Clementoni version of this game, which is the only version. This is the only version you can get of this game. But it's hard to suggest seeking this out when the presentation is so bad. The fact that I think about what I would change if I was a publisher for a new version, I hope that says something that the game itself is worth it. There's a lot to like in the game. There's a nice balance between short, medium, and long-term goals. Short term, as I said, turns are super, super fast. You're just trying to, you're trying to judge which cities might be worth something to put your markets in, right? You're expanding your cities. You're trying to connect your cities to oracles. This is sort of short term, but thinking about the medium to long term, right? Maybe you see an opportunity, you put a market out there, but you don't have a city nearby. So then you're thinking okay, I got to remember to build a city nearby. Otherwise that market's not going to be worth anything and I'm going to lose my investment. Mid-game, you're really caring about making your cities the most influential. Because especially if the oracles are near the center of the board is going to get crowded. And you want your city in there and you want your city to be big. Size alone doesn't matter, or so I'm told, but the larger a city is, the more potential connections it can have. So even though it's expensive to build out your city, you're also making it more expensive for other players to get into that city with their markets, and you're increasing the possible connections. If you can have a large central city, you're going to have a couple of oracles probably pointing to it, and that's worth a sizable number of points at the end of the game. One thing I find is that maybe you have a city which has 8 connections, and I have a city nearby with 7 connections, and we both have roads leading to the same oracle. I might be thinking, is there a way that I, before the end of the game, can increase my number of connections in that city to 9 to take that temple away from you? Sometimes you think about it really hard, and in the end you can't do it. I'll just put some roads down. There are definite skills that you need in this game. You need sort of evaluation, a little bit of risk-taking, seeing what cities are potentially going to be worth a lot by the end of the game, getting your markets in there sooner rather than later. Also, potentially trying to maximize your city's chances of becoming big while minimize other players' chances, other players' cities' chances. And that can involve blocking people's paths out of their own cities. There's a neat technique that you can do. It can be hard to pull off if the other players are paying attention. But you can merge cities. If you have 2 cities, they're both yours, and you put city tiles in between them, they merge into one big city. Now, alone, that's not necessarily worth anything, except maybe it makes it, more valuable for the temples, the oracles. And once you sell a market, the market stays there. You tip it over on its side to show that the market of yours that was there is sold. You can't put a new one in there. If you merge cities, well, each city can only have one market, so you'll have to remove one. You can remove the sold one. Have 2 cities, they're both your cities, you both have markets in them. Sell one, get money, merge them. That one gets removed, because you choose which one to remove. Of course, remove the sold one, right? Now, this one is worth more than it was before, and you sell that one. So you actually, for this half of the city, you're scoring it twice. I find during the game, people are like, can I do this? Because I want to do this, but I don't know if that's allowed. It feels like it shouldn't be allowed. And then I can go, yes, it's allowed, and it's a good move. I've seen it described as kind of a cube rails game. I don't get that. My understanding of cube rails games is most of them involve multiple companies, and you're kind of choosing which ones to grow, which ones to invest in. Each player is their own company, basically. So I don't consider this a cube rails game. If you love cube rails games and you're expecting that from Magna Grecia, probably you're going to be disappointed. Well, I will say that there are things to like in this if you like cube rail games. It's still primarily about connections. It has the concept of growing something, investing in something and then trying to grow it. There is some shared incentives involved. The tiles displaying the turn order and the random limitations of what you can do might seem a little wonky. It's an extra consideration. There is a balancing act. Because, of course, generally, you want to replenish on rounds in which replenishing is powerful. If you replenish now, but you can only replenish 2 tiles, well, maybe if I can see right now that if I wait next round, I can replenish 5 tiles. Everybody's seeing this information at the same time. Everybody else is thinking the same thing. I may replenish next round, not this round. And it can be worthwhile to go against the grain. I can see very few people have tiles. They just have 1 or 2 tiles of each type. This round, the replenish is terrible, but next round is good. I'm guessing a lot of those players are going to do an enhanced replenish action next round. And if I suspect that, if I believe that's going to happen, it can be to my benefit to not follow along. That could be my opportunity to get in somewhere while other people can't really react because they have to spend their turn replenishing. And you can do the same kind of calculus with a turn order, because there'll be some cases where you see I'm going last this round, but I'm going first next round. So I'm going to have 2 turns in a row. How can I take advantage of that? These sort of considerations don't often come up in a lot of games. And so it kind of exercises a different muscle in your brain, in my experience. And that's one reason why I say this game feels to me rather unique. Now, of course, if I'm having the first turn this round and last turn next round, I have a long wait between my turns. And there's only so much planning you can do in between. Like, I can see, like, I would like to build a road there, and everybody else is going to get 2 turns before I get a chance to. The board is probably going to change a lot by the time my turn comes around. So do I even need to look very closely until my turn comes up? Maybe not. There's only so much planning you can do in advance. Earlier in the game, when the board is more wide open, sure, you have a plan that's probably not going to interfere with other players too much. But when the board is crowded and all the players are getting into each other's way, it's very hard to plan, because almost certainly what you want to do is going to interfere with the direct, immediate plans of someone else. And if they're going before you, you're probably not going to get that chance. So it's a double-edged sword. While this is a very good game, I love both the designers. I love Leo Colovini's games. I love Michael Schacht's games. And I like this game, and I'm going to keep it. If you are already thinking, where can I find a used copy of this? I really suggest to avoid that temptation of seeking out a used copy of this. The box is very large. This is larger than these typical kind of Amigo Ravensburger long boxes. This is even bigger. This is closer to like Mask Trilogy, like first editions Tikal, like those ones. People who can look past the presentation may love it, because the gameplay is special. But ask yourself and be honest with yourself whether you can convince other people to play this game with you. And if you think they would be turned off by the look, then you are wasting your time getting this game. It's going to be sitting on your shelf and you're not going to be able to convince people to play it. I would love for there to be a new version of this. And if I was a game publisher, well, if I was a game publisher, I would probably focus on reprints of old games, and I would find games like this to remake. I would love to be the one to do that, but that's not in the cards for the foreseeable future. I would love for somebody to do a new version of this game and to change the color scheme, of course. And like I said, I would probably think of maybe shrinking the board and saying 12 rounds for a 3-player game, 8 rounds for a 4-player game. I'd need to work on it to see what I want to do for a 2-player game. But as a default for 3 and 4 players, I feel like that's the way to go. You know, there are games like, I know Steam is like it, Age of Steam, all those games, where I find that the game is really, really fun and interesting for the first 2/3, 3/4 of the game. And then that last little bit just becomes a slog because the board is full and you're just trying to think of where can I even fit anything that's worthwhile doing. A lot of games of this style, the cube rail style games, or just connection games, suffer from that. I think Railways of the World is the only one I can think of that doesn't, and that's because the board is so massive. You stay in that exploring, doing your own thing state for much, much longer than in those other games where the board becomes more crowded. So anyway, that's something that I would personally do if I was developing this for a new version. And I do hope there is a new version. One edition back in, 2003? So 20 years old now. I think it deserves a new edition. One that you can convince other people to play. Pretty it up, get some more color in there. It doesn't have to be all earth tones. Maybe there's a way to do it. I don't know. I have to talk to a graphic designer to see, what's doable. Almost the weird presentation in earth tones is almost a selling point at this point, just because it's so unique. No other game looks like this, and that's probably a good thing. I wouldn't go out of your way to find this version of the game unless you were sure that people in your group would be interested in it, would be willing to play it with you. If presentation matters even a tiny bit to your game group, just sit on this information. Just know Magna Grecia is a good game, maybe even a great game. And if they ever come up with a new version of the game, then it's like, oh, okay, I heard Daryl say this was good, and now there's a new version that looks great. I'm going to put this on my wish list. Thanks for watching. Older games like Magna Grecia don't stop being good because newer games come out. But let's hope for a new version. All right, take care.